And now, the Rise Above Show, presented by Roofing.com and hosted by Diego Dante.
Welcome to the Rise Above Show, presented by Roofing.com. I am your host, Diego Dante. We are here with John. How are you, man?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Okay, before I butcher your last name, I want to make sure that we all get it right.
Senac.
Senac.
Yep.
All right, man.
It phonetically looks like cynic, so everybody says it that way. So
Yeah.
I appreciate you asking first. That's okay.
That's why, hey, man, I didn't want to butcher it. So we're super excited to have him on the show. We chatted a little bit last night. We've been chatting on Facebook, and he's got some really cool stuff that he's doing in the industry. You guys probably have seen some of the stuff he's got going on. I'll let him introduce that, but I wanted to bring him on the show so we could chat about that and chat about how he's been able to rise above, how he's been able to overcome things in his business and his life. So I appreciate you coming on the show.
Sure.
So tell me a little bit, starting out, let's introduce yourself. Who are you? What do you do in the industry? And how did you start in the industry?
So, John Senac. I started in the industry about 8 years ago in roofing sales, and much like many people in the industry, fell into it somehow. Saw an opportunity, fell into it, and through the course of working for a few different companies, realized that training and information was hard to get and not consistent. And not necessarily the fault of the owners of the companies, but as I transitioned through companies, I realized that I needed to seek some more knowledge. And I've been to a lot of conferences, a lot of training programs, a lot of subscriptions, and private consultants in an effort to learn. And I just saw the value of constantly growing knowledge. And through that process, I eventually came to where I'm at now, where I sell for a company, Equity Builders in Bloomington, Indiana. And I run a Facebook group called Name That Shingle, which helped develop ideas for a program called NTS, which is a shingle identification service, similar to some other ones on the market. I won't say the name. Similar to some other ones on the market that helps contractors, homeowners, adjusters, whoever it is, identify what product's on the roof and what's the relevant information to that. That's been a very impactful thing in the industry in the past year. It's actually not even a full year old yet at this point. So, and then I have a private consulting thing I do where I travel and teach contractors and do some classes, and that's a lot of fun as well.
Cool, man. So how did you, I guess, to get from where you started out in the industry to where you're at now, we were talking about this yesterday, how you're taking on kind of a monopoly on, you've taken on as far as, it's kind of like you're fighting a monopoly on especially with NTS, right? Yep. So there's something that you saw a need there for more competition, and yes, you took them on. So talk a little bit about that.
Sure. Let's get the big elephant out of the way. For years, several people in the industry, the restoration industry, contractors, adjusters, other firms have used a company called ITEL to identify materials and surfaces. And there wasn't a lot of other options. So it was very much like a monopoly in the market because there weren't a lot of other resources for anybody to go to. Homeowners, contractors, adjusters, didn't matter who it was. So we wanted to present an alternate to that, another option. And there's this big giant out there that's already doing it, and we had to come up with a system to what we thought was better information. And again, we're biased. It's our report, but more information, something that the homeowner could sit down and digest and understand all the details relevant to that sample, relevant to what's actually on their roof at that time. And that took a lot of work to try and design that, but we're very happy we did it. And it's a scary thing when you go against something that large. And I really don't think of it like going against it. It's an alternate. And I'm all for competition in the market, right? I think that's a great thing, right? That kind of thrives things to continue to grow and compete and challenge and better themselves. If there's no competition, where's the effort to change, grow, and better? So we wanted to create something with different and more information for the homeowner to be able to read a report and say, oh, this is what my shingle is, and this is the things I need to consider relevant to this particular shingle from this manufacturer. That was our goal, and I think we've accomplished that. And we actually just this past week set a record for the number of reports ordered in a week. And yesterday we set the record for the number of reports ordered in a day. I got that text about 10 o'clock last night. So
that's awesome, dude.
That's good because it must be doing something to help those homeowners that it's getting that kind of traction.
Yeah. So this is the Rise Above show.
Yep.
So we're talking about, how people are able to overcome in their lives, in their businesses. So let's chat about that. I've got a series of questions that I ask
Fire
everyone.
away.
So the first one is, what is a major obstacle that you've had in your life or in your business, and how have you been able to overcome?
Let's talk about two things. We'll combine them together. I transitioned companies for sales right before the pandemic hit. So I switched companies. I'd left a pretty good role, but I felt I didn't have a lot of growth left in that role, and I switched companies. And then we found out we couldn't go talk to customers. We couldn't go door knock. It was a very tough moment. My wife was pregnant with our last child. I just switched jobs, right? And it was an easy time to feel emotionally defeated. And how am I going to do this? And we sat down together, and I had a few consulting things on the table that got canceled. And just to be flat out transparent, to the tune of like $20,000, $25,000 of revenue in consulting because I couldn't go do events. So I'm sitting here with my wife knowing that we just lost that. I just started a new company. New babies, last baby's on the way, 5 children, last baby's on the way. And it was an easy time to feel like you could be emotionally defeated and that maybe this wasn't a good move or maybe this was not the right time. But I remembered something, and I've heard it at several different conferences, that everything in life happens for you, not to you, right? And you got to remember that, because when you have that, woe is me, everything happens to me. Oh, this happens to me, and this happened to me, and this happens to me. You kind of fall victim to that, and it can really continue to cyclically bring you down as you face those challenges in life. But I realized in that moment that this happened to me, right? Or this happened for me. This happened for me. And what do I do with this? Well, the company had just hired a couple of sales guys. Very smart. We talked every day. We came up with new strategies. We came up with new plans on how we were going to sell during the pandemic. We came up with new systems, unorthodox stuff we had never tried before that ended up being very innovative and worked really well in that system. I found a way to privately consult using digital platforms, right? And I found a way it forced me to get more comfortable in social media. It forced me to get more comfortable in Facebook, which I wasn't actively using. And now Facebook is this massive platform for me, as you know, that I am more comfortable in. So when I look at that pivot point for me of something that was a very, very challenging moment, that I was like, oh my God, child 5's on the way, and I'm looking at no income right now. What am I going to do with this? And turned in that moment and said, all right, I'm going to lean into this, and we're going to find a way to lean into this, because this happened for me, and this happened for a reason. I'm going to find that reason, and we're going to move through that. So that's the most recent one I can describe to you. There's been other challenges with NTS and my consulting side stuff, but that was a big one at a very hard moment. That was both, I had to sit down with my wife and have a conversation of what are we going to do?
Yeah. I haven't shared this story, I don't think, on the podcast yet, but something that happened to me was I started in roofing sales about 3 months before the pandemic. And, I did that for, about 4 months. Like, and in that month when everything shut down, I decided, I called up Hunter, who was my boss at the time, and I said, dude, I don't know what's going to happen because everything's about to get shut down. And I was just starting to get to that point where we were starting to build some of those jobs and all that stuff. And we ended up, I said, all right, well, I'm going to be at the office for a little while. Let's see what we can figure out. And we sat down, we said, hey, well, we got this conference, RoofCon, that he had thrown. He had done a little bit as like a workshop. And then he'd done it the previous year. He'd gotten 60 people there. And then we sat there through the pandemic just cold calling vendors to try to get him there. And all of a sudden we had like 50 vendors that were going to come out to this conference that we had a contract for it, but we didn't have people that were going to come to it yet. And so then we grew all of RoofCon. We had 900 people there that last year through with the pandemic. So I can relate with that of, you figure out, I've been reading the book, The Obstacle is the Way. If you haven't read it, great book. And, you take what the things that are happening to you and you say, all right, how do I take this as a opportunity to grow from this? I think what you're talking about is fits in with that exactly. And for the people listening, like, what are the things in your life that, the things that you see as an obstacle right now, and how do you turn that to a way to grow from that?
Yeah.
So,
and actually, it was Ed Milet uses that quote.
Yeah.
And he said it at RoofCon, that everything happens for you, not to you. And that's again, great one. I keep it in the back of my mind all the time. I was so excited to hear that at RoofCon last year and see him speak and hear that actually in person from him. It kind of brought me chills thinking, man, that's what I was thinking a year and a half ago was that exact thing. And that's the person I'd heard it from before. So to hear him say it on stage was fun.
That's awesome. So the next question is, how will you know that you've succeeded in business?
The succession of what I've done, right? The significance of what I've done. My chapter title for this year is Impacting an Industry. And it'll be measured by what that impact looks like through NTS and how that helps shape the results for homeowners and analyzing the samples. It'll be what John the Roof Pro, the consulting side that I have, helps develop contractors and skill sets for those contractors with the classes I teach and the consulting that I do. And locally with Equity Builders, who I sell for, we've got a lot of great growth strategies that we're working on there and seeing those growth strategies come into play in those models. So I'll look back and see on a micro level how I impacted the industry locally where I sell, and on a macro level how I impacted the industry through the consulting side of things and but all of that I want to have some succession and some significance. I'm already looking at who are the people I can bring in, everybody knows me because I know a lot of shingles. Well, there's a lot of good guys that are starting to learn that. Who can I bring in, mentor, coach, teach, bring them to this level, and they can go teach too. And we can create a succession of that knowledge to continue to pass that on, to continue to offer more knowledge, more classes, more skill set out there. So the succession of what I do this year and how it impacts the industry and the significance of that will be measured. That's just it. Succession and significance. Those are the two words in the back of my mind when I think of what am I going to measure it with.
Cool, man. The next question that we ask everybody, what is a book that has changed your life?
Changed my life is hard. The most recent book I read was Traction. I'm really into that book right now, so let's lean into that one because I look at what that meant for me, understanding with Equity Builders, who I sell for in Indiana, what we are going to utilize from that book to set up our sustainable systems and models. So that book has been very impactful to the tune that everybody in the company's read that book now, right? Like, because you pretty much have to have, like, that's one of those books that when you read it, you're like, if you try and talk about it and the other person hasn't read it, they need to be on board with it, right? So everybody's read that, and now I'm taking some of those thoughts and thinking, how do we build that into our NTS model so everybody within the NTS organization also has that same concept and that same mindset? So we're utilizing the things from Traction both on a micro level and on a macro level. So that book has been impactful more now than anything else.
All right. So if people want to find out more about NTS and about you, where do they need to go?
All right, let's start with NTS. If someone's needing a shingle identification, doesn't matter, homeowner, contractor, public adjuster, insurance adjuster, doesn't matter who it is, www.ntsid.com to order the report, and then they fill out a form, they print that form out and ship it in with their shingle. Super simple. We have a Facebook community, and it really is just a community. It's called Name That Shingle. It's the largest one titled Name That Shingle. Lots of education, lots of people helping each other out, and there's several in that group that have become experts now. And for me, I really like more additions on John the Roof Pro, Instagram or Facebook. You can add me personally, but either way, it doesn't matter. Those are the great ways to connect with me and stay connected with me.
Cool. Well, thank you for coming on. Guys, appreciate you for tuning in to this episode of the Rise Above Show here live from, I forgot where we were at. D2D-Con in Salt Lake City, Utah. I was thinking of the city. Anyway, guys, y'all have a great day, and we'll catch you next time on the next episode of the Rise Above Show.